The LG Procast, the podcast, is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views or opinions expressed by the podcast hosts and guests do not necessarily reflect the official position of LG. For the latest and most accurate information about LG products, please consult relevant product manuals and related documentation. The information provided in this podcast episode is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we make no representation or warranties of any kind, express or implied, about the completeness, accuracy, reliability, or suitability of the information for any specific application in the following discussion. LG and those posting or otherwise providing information, content, or material are not responsible or liable for any consequences relating directly or indirectly to any action or inaction you take based on the information, content, or other material on the podcast.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the LG Procast. I'm your host, Terry Frisunda.
And I'm Philip Craigbaum. Thanks for being here with us. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're at AHR on the floor of the show. And we've got a bunch of questions that have come in through social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. And then we've also got some opportunity for people in the audience to pick our brains and see what we know.
Really, please. So when it comes your turn to ask a question, don't be bashful. If we don't know the answer, we'll make it up. All right. No, just kidding. No, again, thanks. We both looked really forward to this opportunity today because we want the people that listen to this podcast or watch this podcast to send this information into us, because that's really the way we learn. When adults start communicating back and forth, right, that's the way we learn. Just always listening or always talking, not always the best way to learn. So, Philip, you want to kick us off or you want me to do it?
I got you.
Okay.
So this one comes in from one of our distributors, CFM Distributors. What is the most iconic use of the space for the art of the Art Cool Gallery? That's our picture frame unit.
I can tell you that there's a little job that would be north of here in a town called Sanford, Florida, or DeLand, Florida. I apologize. And it's the Stetson Mansion. And the Stetson Mansion is exactly that. The Art Cool Gallery is installed in that home. And the guys that own that home run tours out of it. They love the home. But he said after the job was up and running that what drove them the craziest was they want to talk about the home, they want to talk about the application, and all the people want to see is what's that on the wall that's making air conditioning. So it was driving them crazy for a while, and that was the Art Cool Gallery unit. Yeah, it's a fun job.
Yeah, it's one of those that you can put it so many places. I remember walking into one of our distributors. I was in there for 20 minutes or more before I realized that in his office was one of the Art Cool galleries. It just blended in so well. He'd put like a poster or something in it. You know,
you and I have done funny stories in the past on podcasts. You know, what did you see? What happened? And I can tell you that I was on a job that was a service issue and it had an Art Cool gallery on it. And once we resolved the service issue, which turned out to be an installation issue, surprised by that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But once we resolved that, the lady of the house said, "Hey, I have one complaint about this system." And I said, "Yes, ma'am, what's that?" And she said, "I don't like the picture." And I said, "Well, that's easy to change." I went over and I clipped the two clips and I opened it and I slid the picture out and I asked her if she had any other picture that she would like to see in there, dog, cat, husband, whatever. And she said, "No, but I thank you for doing that." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And as I turned, she looked at her husband and said, "When he leaves, I'm killing you." All right, because I wanted that picture out of here a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really easy to change.
It's super easy to change. We'll accept any 20 by 20 or 24 by 24 artwork. So
yeah.
All right, it looks like question number 2, they love the podcast. That was very kind. But there's not a whole lot of LG ducted applications in my area. I'd love to see a show on installing one and setting it up with the thermostat. Well, Philip, you want to tell him what we're going to do?
So, yes, we're going to have that. We're actually working on the very, very last bits of introducing a video library of how-tos, how to do this, how to do that, how to do this. And then we're going to expand that library as we go. But those will be introduced probably by the time this episode airs, I believe, I hope. But I'll answer your question. It's not actually a question, it's a statement. But ducted applications. So if you've ever installed a ducted air handler and you know how to run ductwork and you know how to put on a plenum and you know how to install metal duct or flex duct or whatever, you have done everything that you need to know on how to install one of our air handlers. And if you've ever installed a mini split where you power the indoor unit from the outdoor unit via the communication cable, and you've hooked up your line set using flare connections, you've piped and wired this system. There was a comment with the thermostat. There are some settings. We do have some information available on that. I do think this would be a great idea for us to run through like a video or a show. I think we could do that.
I agree. I mean, obviously, as the team leader for the builder development department, and Philip works for that group as well, we're promoting ducted applications with this technology. We're promoting whole home heating and cooling. So yeah, we want you to have access to that information just as good. No, but listen, there's resources for you. We have distribution partners who have training, who have labs, and who have the facilities that you can go to and get this kind of information. A little hard to put all that in a 20 or 30-minute podcast, but we're working on some stuff that we can get to you for sure.
Yeah. So from Instagram, how can I get the training to become an LG Pro dealer? You want to start with what an LG Pro dealer is, and then how to get the training?
Let's start there. So LG Pro dealer is a contractor who's made a conscious decision to promote, sell, install, and apply LG HVAC systems correctly. All right. The key there being correctly, because like any engineered piece of equipment, the quality is 100% related to the quality of the installation.
Yeah. What I hear from our LG Pro dealers is when you put it in right, it just works.
It just works.
So training, I'll address that. So there's a couple places that you can get trained. Many of our distributors have associate academies where they have all of the full labs set up. You can go to the distributor, do the training classes that are required. Their instructors have been to our facilities and taking the train the trainer courses that they need, where they can conduct the training classes. So you're getting the education that you'd get from an LG training facility, or you're welcome to come to one of ours. We've got them scattered throughout the country. We've got Southern California, Dallas, Atlanta, Boston, New Jersey, and soon to be Chicago.
Awesome.
Am I missing any? I think that's it.
Not that I can,
Yeah.
but like you said, we got some great partner labs. So
Yeah.
those partners that are making those commitments are the ones that we also see and have the most success with, right?
Yep.
So, and the contractors that work in those markets are the contractors that are having the most success with the product.
Yeah. So we've got our questions here, but if you guys have questions in the audience, like jump up.
Yeah,
We'd-
raise your
we'd love
hand.
to
We'll get a
get
mic
those.
to you, and you can ask a question.
We're going to keep plowing through these.
Andy got a question there. Andy's hands up. God bless him.
Hi, thank you. So I know you sell inverter systems, but can you just talk a little bit about sizing for inverter systems? Because, you'd think the inverter, wouldn't that give you some kind of leeway? Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I've been hearing a lot of discussion around that, and I just want to hear your perspective.
Sure. It all starts with knowing the size needed, right? And that's done through software and load calculation programs.
Yep.
Right? Once that's determined, you want to select a system, an inverter-driven system, because I know what you're asking me, Andy, because we've had a conversation. That system has the capability to ramp up and ramp down and change its capacity. That's what this whole magic and science is about, right? Is the ability to change its capacity. But you still want to know the proper size, and you still want to select the rated proper size so that when you get the swings, cloudy day, sunny day, cold day, warm day, that inverter can do what it's designed to do, which is ramp up or ramp down and meet those loads, not always run it on or off, right?
And there's official requirements around that too. I mean, there's the whole you can't oversize a mini split myth that's been out there and debunked. And if that were true, ACCA would not have any guidance on how to put in inverter systems. They would say, put in whatever you want, it'll ramp down, no big deal. Well, there's this thing called a manual S, and they only allow you to go up to 30% over the capacity, over the load on the cooling side. So if it was just a magic bullet that could ramp down, they wouldn't care how big that you put it in. Now, is it more forgiving than a single speed? Yes. So it does give you a little bit more wiggle room, but the people that are just sticking it in, I'll just put in a bigger one. And really where it gets abused are on the small mini splits. I'll just throw a 1-ton system in that room. That room might need 1/8 of a ton. And we're going to throw a 1-ton system in, just let it ramp down and let it run its whole life at the lowest speed possible. You're not going to get the moisture control that you want. You're not going to get the longevity out of the system that you want, because it needs to run. That compressor needs to spin, needs to get the oil returned back. So sizing is a hugely important piece.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great question. Thank you.
All right, I'll get the next one here. How long does the inverter heat pump water heater take to heat up to full capacity?
Well, I happen to know a few of these numbers. Our first, it's called FHR, first hour heat recovery. All right. The 58-gallon heat pump water heater from LG Electronics has the capability to produce 76 gallons of hot water in the first hour. All right. That's tops in class. All right. It does that at a UEF of 3.93.
So why are we faster than everybody else?
We have the opportunity to spin the hertz on that compressor faster than a standard single speed compressor.
Yeah, because we have an inverter compressor. Everything we make is inverter compressor.
Absolutely.
So even our water heater, so we have the ability to actually produce more heating than most, if not all, of the competitive heat pump water heaters. So we can recover faster.
Absolutely.
And more efficiently.
That thing has 4 modes of operation too. It has heat pump only mode, it has a turbo mode, which is using both, has an auto mode, which selects its operation choice, and then a vacation mode. But it's changing heat water. It's changing hot water heating for sure.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It doesn't have to hide the basement or garage anymore. Right?
Yep.
How do I get the techs up to the LG training facility for courses?
First of all, I love the question.
Right.
Because I love training. I love people who want to invest in their technicians, who don't just want to send one guy to school and he's supposed to disseminate all the information, because that kind of doesn't usually happen, doesn't usually work. He wants to send his guys to school. So we've kind of already answered this question, but I'll address it a little bit deeper. If you have a distributor in your area who has an associate academy, that's probably where I would start.
Right.
If you don't, and you're looking to come to one of the LG schools, you can reach out to the LG salesperson in your area. If you don't know who that is, you can go to lghvac.com/training, and you can sign right up there. You can go right on there. You can view the schedule for all of our different academy locations, and you can sign up, get registered, and then show up. It's easy as that. Can the multi-VS be used with a heat pump and ducts in the main house and split unit in the garage that are not ducted?
Now we're talking.
That's a great setup.
All right. So connecting multiple indoor units to a single outdoor unit is what this technology does. The capability to add ducted units and ductless units and build a hybrid heating and cooling system for this home is what makes it different. Because now I could have, Philip and I represent the builder development group, and if I'm in front of a builder and I'm looking at the builder and I'm talking about what we can do, and I say to him or her that I have the capability, your house is under 5 tons, I have the capability to take a single outdoor unit and make a ducted air handler and do the ductwork like you do every day of your life in your home from your HVAC contractor, yet I can isolate the primary bedroom and heat and cool that space independently of the rest of the house. That's when I get a builder to stop and take a breath and want to listen to what Philip and I and the other members of my team have to say, because that's what people are asking for.
Yeah, and he mentioned something in his question about the garage. And we're in Orlando. It's miserably hot and humid here during the summer. I grew up not far from here, so I remember those days. But air conditioning the garage, lots of people want to air condition their garage, and with the traditional ducted system, you can't. You can't bring those exhaust fumes to enter into the house. And what we can do is not have to put in a whole separate system for the garage. We're just going to put another indoor unit, tie it into the same outdoor unit, no extra electrical, tie it right in, and now the garage is going to have its own independently operating system that's still tied into the main condenser.
Yeah, hey, that's not just a cooling application too, because the folks up north like to walk in their garage and have a heated garage to get in their car and go to work in the morning as well.
Absolutely.
So it works both heating and cooling side. So does LG have any good solutions for mobile homes?
Yes, several different ways we can attack that. So just like, do we have good solutions for a house? Yes, but everyone is a little bit different. But here's what I'll tell you. If you have a duct system in good condition, and you have the space, we can often put our air handler in a downflow configuration, and we can blow through your existing ducts in the floor, which typically mobile homes have. Some have ceiling. Our larger units will handle up to a 1 inch of static pressure, which is a relatively high static pressure for residential systems. So we can move the air through those ducts. We are still limited by what the duct system can deliver, but when we can get the static pressure up and beyond a full inch, we can push that air to the ends of the runs, and we can do that. Now, if that's not a good situation for you, we still have the option of using ductless units. And no, I'm not talking about putting one in every little bedroom, because we can put 1 or 2 ductless units in the living space. Then we can use some transfer fans. I'm a big fan of using transfer fans to move air into the bedrooms in different spaces throughout the house. We don't have to have a unit in every single room. We'll take the air from the living area, the main living area, and we'll push it via a third-party fan. There's several brands out there, very quiet, very efficient. We push the air into the bedroom, we pressurize the bedroom, and then we have to make sure that we give it a path out. That might just be an undercut under the door that's going to give you 60 or 70 CFM through a 1 inch undercut. It might be a jumper duct through the ceiling. It might be a pass-through grill. So we've got to give the air a pathway back out. But those are 2 different ways that we can attack a mobile home. So it depends on the situation and what you're dealing with. But yeah, there's definitely options for that.
Yeah, I can tell you from experience that there's a craze in our country for the 14 by 28 park model. Campgrounds, traditional RV campgrounds are converting campsites from RVs to 14 by 28 park models. Most of those campsites, or a lot of those campsites, are on a 30 amp service. But if they're on a 50 amp service, typically we can set a 14 by 28 park model on a campsite, use our 2-ton, which is about the size normally chosen, use our 2-ton heat pump and go back and use the existing campground RV service of 50 amps and not have to do a service upgrade on their camp. So that's helped us get into a market that you just traditionally wouldn't think of that's there to do.
So I'll ask you a similar question. What LG HVAC products are good for RV applications?
I think I just said that.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, there's a manufacturer out in the Midwest that builds, and you have to see them to believe them. And I was fortunate enough to go to their factory. They built a 53-foot RV that's a tractor trailer. And when you buy it, you get the tractor trailer and the 53-foot RV that hooks up to it through a goose deck hitch, okay? He loved this product so much that he stopped what he was doing and made a single piece, 53-foot by 8-foot or whatever that width is, fiberglass roof system to house our ceiling cassettes. And now he has a bubble in this single fiberglass roof with a ceiling cassette mounted in the main living area, and a ceiling cassette mounted in the middle, and a ceiling cassette mounted in the main bedroom. And he runs those all to a multi-zone outdoor unit that he's created a compartment for underneath the bus, like you see for luggage, that's vented and louvered and all that. They start at like, 1.5 million or something like that. But there's a person that said, hey, this is clever. This stuff's quiet. Because if you've ever lived in an RV, and I lived full-time in an RV for like 15 months with my wife and I, man, it's great to have an HVAC system in it, but it's so noisy. I love the noise. My wife, not so much, but they're noisy. And now he has a different clientele, right? Paying that much for RVs. They're dead silent. So he was a fan. And if you're in that market, you can search Southwest for an RV company.
Last summer, I saw one of those out in the wild, and I noticed some people looking at it, and I was like, I know what that is. And I walked over to it and took a peek through the louver grill that he had there for the outdoor unit. And I was like, sure enough, it is.
He built one, and it was solid black, and put it on a boat and sent it to like Saudi Arabia or somewhere like that for a prince too. So that's his customer. So, or their customer. Let's see what's next. I love this question. Will the expense of an LG inverter heat pump water heater be recouped with electricity savings? And will they fit where your old water heater was?
Yes, and usually.
Yeah,
So,
maybe.
a couple things. I'll tackle that first and see what you
Okay.
want to say. So savings based on changing from what would be my first question. Are we
Correct.
changing from an electric to a heat pump? The LG is rated at $177, and that's in automatic mode where it switches back and forth between the heat pump and the elements. So in theory, if we ran it in heat pump only mode, it could actually be lower than that. Now versus gas, again, what are we comparing it to? Natural gas depends on the cost of your natural gas, so substantial savings there. And it would depend on how efficient your gas water heater is too. So a lot of variables in there to make that a hard question to answer.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to note is that information is not our information. That information is coming from DOE.
Yeah.
Right. So they're reporting that stuff, not us. They're the one testing. They're the one saying this is what it costs to do. But here's the bottom line. Water heating and HVAC typically account for 60, maybe 70%
It's a bunch.
of the total electric bill in your house. And when you start reducing those numbers by 20, 30, 40%, you're impacting your electric bill.
Yeah.
Right. And in a measurable amount.
Yep.
So is there a math or is there an equation that says how much or how long? I don't have it in front of me, but I bet somewhere somebody can sit down and say saving $600 a year won't take too much or too many years to pay back the
No, it
price
really
of that water
won't.
heater.
It really won't. So will it fit where your old water heater was?
It won't fit where my 30-gallon low boy was,
No.
but it certainly allowed me to take my washer and dryer side by side that was eating up all my laundry room space and move that to an LG stack wash tower. And guess what? That just freed up all the space for me to put my new LG heat pump water heater next to it and get rid of the low boy and get $177 a year.
So if a homeowner's wanting to know, hey, I've got a water heater in my basement, garage, living room, I don't care, wherever it is, what are some of the considerations that they need to look at and go, okay, yes, I could fit an LG, or no, I probably couldn't? What are some of the things that they need to know?
So there's some requirements for free space because again, it's moving air. That's what heat pump does, right? It's moving heat from one location to another. The byproduct of that is obviously air conditioning. So if you're in a cold climate, you want to think about that because off the top of that, or actually off the back of that water heater, when it's making hot water, it's discharging cold air, very cold air, all right? Like air conditioning air. So for me in Florida, it's perfect because it conditions my garage without doing anything.
Yep.
Maybe in Minnesota, that's not the best option. So we make a duct kit to get rid of that cold air. All right, I got some creative customers. You know, the good thing about working for this company is we have creative customers. I have a customer in Colorado that took the discharge air from the heat pump water heater and moved it into this wine cellar, which was next door. And so he didn't have to buy a very expensive wine cellar. Now, he did have to buy a humidifier to keep the humidity in there, to keep the corks and all that. But that was a lot less money and a whole lot quieter than just throwing away this cold air he's making for heat pumps. So
Yeah, cool.
there's ways to do what you want to do. Discharge air kits, putting it in a kitchen. I have neighbors that just closed on their house this week. They live a couple of canals away. They have it standing in a closet in their kitchen. All right. Because it's that quiet, running at 40 some decibels. It's that quiet. So
So a
they're
couple
getting-
little details.
Yeah.
If it is going to be in an enclosed space like a closet, if there's a louvered door, that solves that problem.
That's right.
It needs 700 cubic feet of space. So about a 10 by 10 room with a 7-foot ceiling. So
That's
a
your
little
kitchen.
less than that.
That's your kitchen.
Yeah. Laundry room.
Right.
Pretty
Laundry
often.
room. Right.
But to answer the basic question, if it's in an open area, dimension wise, it's similar to most other water heaters. It does have side connections. So it cannot be as you face it on the right-hand side. So it can't be shoved all the way up against the wall. You're going to need several inches on that side to make your water connections, where a lot of heat pumps have top connections, or water heaters have top connections. It does have side connections. So you're going to need a little bit more room side by side. And then you just need room for it to breathe. Otherwise, yes. And as far as the hookup, if you're changing from an electric system over to this, It doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
The only additional thing is you'll have a drain for the condensate. If you're going from gas over to this, there's going to be a little bit more. You're going to have to run a 30 amp circuit to power it. So there's some considerations there. Yep.
All right, hey, thanks for that question. That question, by the way, came in from Chuck DeHart on Facebook. Thank you for that, Chuck. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Next question. Any questions from the audience before I go to the next written question? Don't be bashful. Don't make me pick you out like they do it. All right. I love the name. Frequent user.
I think that means a lot of people asked it.
Oh, frequent. Is that what that means? Frequent. What's a good place for me to start training for an HVAC career? Well, that certainly ties into this morning's podcast, right?
Yeah, so we had Clifton Beck on. We recorded this morning from ESCO Institute. And ESCO is an amazing organization that works with trade schools all over the country. They certify the trade schools. So if you're looking for a different school and you go, I don't know if this one's any good or if that one's better, which one should I go to? You can go to the ESCO Institute and look and see which schools have been certified by ESCO, and that's going to give you a standard to measure against. So that they've checked out their instructors, they've checked out their curriculum, the instructors know how to present properly, that they have the right teaching coming out of it. So if I were looking to get into the trade, that's one place that I would start. If you have a good technical training school in your area, that's a great place to start. There's also contractors out there who have developed in-house very solid training programs. It's hard for me to tell you where to go find one, but they're scattered throughout the country where they'll bring you in. And what we would do when I was working for a contractor, if you had the aptitude to learn and you had the attitude, that's all I cared about. We can teach you the trade. We can teach you how to install, how to service, how to diagnose, anything that you need to know. If you have the aptitude to learn it, but more importantly, the attitude, I mean, contractors are hungry for men and women like that.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it over and over as Philip and I are around the country. You know, trade, quality, pride. All those go together, right? And it's great to see a movement back toward commitment to trade, and that kids want to be electricians and kids want to be plumbers and kids want to be HVAC techs. And so there's a great movement, I'd like to say, in our country for that to happen again, because really and truly, we look down to it, that's what built our country was the trade business, right?
Is.
So I'm glad we're kind of getting back to that.
And you know what? You can make an amazing living. There's
absolutely
growing shortage of HVAC technicians and
all trades.
All trades, yes. And as that continues, the demand for the really good ones, especially the ones that are willing to learn, willing to go to school, willing to stay up to date on the newest technology, who understand these VRF systems and large centrifugal chillers. When you get specialized in one little area of it, especially, man, you can make a phenomenal living in the trades.
I know you can look up above and see the little tagline, I fix mini splits. You know, it's a screensaver on my laptop because it's a generic white billboard. And as I'm traveling around the country, I'm having a conversation with contractors all the time about, listen, man, if I was 30 and not 68, that billboard would be on the interstate or the biggest road that you have in your town. And it would say, I fix mini splits, and it would have my license number and my phone number on it. And I'd be the wealthiest HVAC guy in your community because this stuff's being bought and installed daily and growing 20-30% a year and more. A lot of opportunities for people that can say, you know what? It's really not that hard. It's simple. I can fix this stuff easily. And it'll boil down to, you know, Philip and I do a class called Piping, Wiring, and Charging. It'll boil down to being one of those three things that makes it wrong, or all those three things. And then we'll just solve that and fix it, and we'll be the hero.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not that hard.
It's not that hard, and it's a lot of fun. And nothing builds trust like going in and fixing something for someone that multiple people have had no success doing. Right? So.
Oh, we got another question by that frequent user guy. Why does the cost for an LG HVAC solution or specific unit vary so much? Can you help me understand how this is calculated and planned for by the contractors? That's a big question.
So I did a webinar an hour or two ago for one of the publications, and that question was asked from their group as well. How do contractors price? What makes a contractor have this price? why does he charge me to show up, and why does this guy not charge me to show up? And one of the panelists that I sat with on there said, you know what, let me see if I can answer that for you. And he's a relatively successful HVAC contractor. And he said, if you go to the doctor, do you pay to see him? And I said, well, of course I do. It's a copay and my insurance. And he goes, so why shouldn't you pay me to come see you if I'm your HVAC contractor? I came to you. You didn't even have to come to me. And I thought, okay, all right. He says, do I have programs that if you're my customer, I come out and do this or that? Yes, those are service agreements. He says, but if I'm coming out on a cold call, it cost me, and he told the number, he said, it cost me $329 to put my truck in your driveway for 45 minutes. Me asking for $60 is a copay, right? And so that kind of put it into a different light for me. There are markets where that won't work because the community, HVAC contractors community, has decided we don't want to do that. We don't want to charge. And then there's communities where guys are like, no, we charge for that service. If you want us to come out, you're paying, right? So time is money.
And you know, the cost of, say, an install can vary drastically contractor to contractor. And, you know, if they're not comfortable with this technology, if they haven't done a lot of these systems and they don't know what they don't know, they hedge their bet and they go, well, if things go wrong for me, I could end up stuck on this job for 3 days, so I just better load up my labor.
Better price it high.
And just price it high. And you know, remember some of those jobs, you price them high and hope you don't get them. And then when you do get them, you're like, oh, crud.
I guess it didn't price high enough.
Yeah. You know, so you don't want to be the cheapest guy.
No.
Because you're not building quality. You're not building the equity into your company that you deserve. You can't make a good living if you're the cheapest guy on the road, but you've got to be fair and reasonable. But you have to know what the time it takes. And that comes with a little bit of experience and a little bit of comfort. And you know, okay, if I put this system in, it's going to take my guys 4 hours, 8 hours, a day and a half, whatever it is.
Yeah, obviously, like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And the fewer mistakes you make. And then that starts to snowball into, okay, I'm getting competitive at this. And this is a normal channel and a normal piece of my business. So,
and I get the frustration for a homeowner. Like, why are my quotes all over the board? In every scenario is different. Every single house is different. So there's no way that a contractor can even go, hey, if you want this piece of equipment, here's what it's going to cost you to put it in, because it might take me 4 hours at house number 1, and it might take me 6 hours plus more materials at house number 2. So even the same unit in 2 different homes can cost pretty drastically different prices.
Let me speak to something. I'll be a frequent user, and I'm going to ask this question. All right. How can you ask more for your product than some of those other products that I could see on social media? You know, the ones that they're DIYs. And, you know, I challenge our marketing group on a monthly basis or weekly basis to say there's messaging that we should build around that, because anybody that's in this business, this inverter-driven ductless business, is familiar with the service lines and the number of calls and the amount of time for fixing systems that were installed incorrectly.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that I want to clear that up, because I get from my own neighbors, I get asked, well, how come, you know, this brand is so much less expensive than your brand? We invest in, first of all, our products in this country. We have millions of square feet of manufacturing and distribution facilities in this country. We hire people that work and live in this country to run service lines and ship material and do diagnoses. And so there's a cost of doing that. And I wanted to bring that out there, because as I see more and more products hit social media at really just incredibly ridiculous pricing.
Yeah. And you mentioned parts. I mean, there's a lot of these products that if it breaks, you just order another one, a whole new system, because they can't support it. They won't support it.
Absolutely.
And we've gotten very good at distributing parts. And that's part of being a piece of the LG puzzle. Like, we have washer and dryer parts and refrigerator parts and television parts in that same infrastructure as who delivers the air conditioning parts.
That's
and
correct.
So we've got that down, and they do it very, very well.
isn't R32 putting a damper on VRF?
Why is R32? I'll start with the A2Ls and then we'll get into R32 specifically. So as everybody probably knows at this point, as of January 1, 2025, 410A can no longer be manufactured or imported. The equipment can no longer be manufactured or imported. 5-ton and under systems, so residential stuff, all had to change. Guys, that was not the manufacturers all jumping up and down and going, oh, goody, let's change refrigerants. We didn't ask for it. Frankly, we didn't necessarily want it. It was imposed on us for better or for worse. Maybe there's good reasons, maybe there's not. That can be debated. But the reality is all the manufacturers were told this is what you have to do. So we were really given two options. We were given the option of 454B, a brand new blended refrigerant, or we were given the option of R32, which is a single component refrigerant that's been used for over a decade throughout Europe and the rest of the world. And so those were the two options, and different manufacturers selected different things. And that's where I think the frustration for technicians comes in. We dealt with the R22 to 410A change. That was
more than 20
years ago, but it was bad. It was rough. And now we're going from 410A to two different refrigerants. So I get the frustration, you know, and there's good reasons that manufacturers chose each one. There are reasons why it's not just one refrigerant that everybody settled on. And some of it has to do with technology. You know, R32 has a higher discharge temperature than 454B, which on a single stage compressor makes it a really big challenge for them to use. Single stage compressors don't work very well with R32. An inverter compressor, with the technology that we have, we can cope with
those higher
discharge temps, but the benefit of R32 outweighed that. It is a more efficient refrigerant than 454B. You use less of it, so you're going to use less of that refrigerant. So where 454B has a lower GWP rating, the overall environmental impact of an R32 system is actually lower because it's it's more efficient, so less energy to run it.
Less volume.
And the charge in the system, if heaven forbid it all leaks out, is actually less charge. So while they're very close, R32 like nudges it out on the environmental impact side, but it really came down to performance. It's a more efficient gas. We need less of it. And it's less expensive. By the way, the R32 is quite a bit less expensive than
single
the 454B.
Component too, so that helps. So
because 450B is made up of R32 and 1234YF. But there's some good that's coming out of it too. Because of the performance of R32, today and yesterday, I got to do a presentation on the all-new LG Red Core model. We're getting down to temperatures of -31 degrees. So our systems are rated to -31. We talked with some of the researchers from Alaska. They're seeing -40 temperatures and still getting strong performance out of these systems. And I don't think we could have gotten there necessarily with the 410A. R32 was a piece of being able to get to those extreme cold temperatures.
yeah, if you go back to one of our earlier podcasts, we had Dr. Charles Allgood on the show back a couple of podcasts ago, and he's a super brilliant mind of Chemours, chemical, and he spoke specifically about, you know, 454B and R32, and, you know, try to take away all the fear, if you will, and the myths and all the misinformation. That was a great podcast. If you want to go back and search it through it, it's probably worth listening to again if you haven't heard it.
Yeah. So we got one more question here, and then if there's anybody in the audience, we'd love to get some more there. What impact do loyalty programs for manufacturers or distributors have on what you install or recommend to your clients? What types of rewards are most exciting to you? It almost seems like that's a reversed question. Like that's what we should be asking to the contractors, but you've been in this space a long time. You work for distribution, you work for manufacturing, you've been a contractor. So what's your take on it?
So here's what I think about loyalty programs. I think that if your loyalty program is the trust that you built in your community, that you don't need a loyalty program, right? I believe that if you're doing the right thing in your community and as an HVAC contractor and you're sizing correctly and you're installing correctly and you're educating correctly and you're putting quality product in and quality installations, I don't believe you need a loyalty program. I believe your loyalty program is your word, is the name on your truck and that people trust you. They're in your community day in and day out. That's my personal and humble opinion.
So that would be a contractor having a loyalty program for their customers. What
Right.
about manufacturer, like dealer programs? And maybe that's what he's referring to.
You know, our industry has been built on it, and I tell everybody, HVAC contractors are world travelers for one reason and one reason only. They've been supported by the HVAC equipment manufacturers, and most of these guys, HVAC contractors and their wives, have traveled to the most exotic locations in the world built off of an equipment dealer program. I'm not saying that's a bad idea, right? Certainly that I've been on a few of those trips in my life and they were very enjoyable. I don't know that it needs to be a part of what we do. I think, again, building a product like LG builds, the efficiency, the comfort, the flexibility, the application, I think those things begin to build more loyalty than sending you on a trip. I think if you make more money selling our products, you can afford to buy yourself a trip.
Yeah, and we take a little bit different approach. We do have a program for our dealers, the LG Pro Dealer program. But what we try to do is bring value to your brand, to your company, to help you grow your company, to give you resources. We've partnered with so many different third-party companies that offer things that we bring to you. Either we subsidize it, sometimes we pay for it, sometimes we just connect you to them. But we want to help you grow your company. So we want to bring true value to your company, not just a vacation at the end of the year. I mean, great, trips are great, like you said, but they come and go. It doesn't really create true loyalty, where when you partner with somebody and you help them grow their company, that creates loyalty. That creates a bond and a relationship. And that's what we try to bring to somebody. I'm on several of these Facebook groups, and, a lot of times I'll see guys go, what brand of equipment should I sell? And it's just an open question, or should I sell this brand or that brand? And my answer is always the same. You need to find a brand and a distributor, primarily the distributor, to be totally honest with you, who is going to support you and be loyal there. Because if you don't have the support from your distributor and the manufacturer behind them, it doesn't matter. Equipment is equipment to some degree. There's definitely differentiators between some of them, but you need the support as a business owner of the distributor and the manufacturers. And that's why we try to find the best distributors that we possibly can, who are going to support the contractors, who are going to provide local technical support, who are going to be there if they need help, who are going to provide the training, and then we stand behind those distributors. And so, yes, I think everybody should install LG, but not just for that reason. I think there's bigger reasons behind it.
Awesome. All right. Do we have any questions from the audience before we wrap this thing up today?
Yeah, this has been fun.
Yeah.
I like doing this. Hopefully we'll get some more questions to do it again.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So these are all electric systems, okay?
Yes, sir.
So can you talk a little bit about how sizing a generator for one of these systems would be different than sizing for, a single speed system?
Sure. So if you look at these inverter driven systems, one of the things you're going to notice, if you look at the nameplate tag and electrical ratings, you're going to see RLAs and lock rotor amps and startup current and inrush current and things like that. You're going to see that they're very low, in some cases nearly zero. All right. So when you're sizing generators, they're taking the sum of the locked rotor amps that you want to include on this generator circuit. So your refrigerators, 30, and this is 20, and the HVAC's 50, 60, whatever that is. That's the size of generator that they sell. When you have zero lock rotor or near zero lock rotor or near zero inrush current, that allows you to select smaller generators, much smaller generators, particularly if you're connecting like just a few things like lights and a refrigerator, maybe even a 30 amp, no inrush current heat pump water heater from LG. So now when power's out, I have hot water, I have heating and cooling, and I have refrigeration because I got an inverter compressor in my refrigerator as well. All right. So all those things mean not only to to generator power, but to the group, solar arrays and battery storage. Those things become smaller and less capacity, if you will.
Yeah, and we've worked with builders who have done the math with us, and realized that, hey, if I use LG air conditioning versus what I typically use, single stage, if I'm putting a generator on this home, the savings that I have just in the generator size, going from a 30 kW to a 17 kW, or whatever the case may be, more than offsets the cost of moving up and upgrading the HVAC system. So that's the initial cost. But what about the fuel cost to run those large generators? So I sold generators when I was working for an HVAC company. We sold generators in South Louisiana where we had hurricanes, and it was great to sell them. And I still remember one guy calling me up after we had a storm, and he was out for a week. He called me up when he got his gas bill, and it was natural gas. It wasn't even propane. He said, I was out for a week, and it was wonderful. My whole family came over, and I got my gas bill at the end of the month, and it was $1,500 for the week. And he was like, well,
Not feeling so good now.
I was glad I had it, but so if we can reduce the running cost of that, that's just another level of benefit to the homeowner. I mean, you don't want a monster generator unless you need it.
Right. Super question.
Cool.
Listen, we're going to wrap this up today. Again, I'm Terry Fresenda with LG Procast here at AHR. That one. Here at AHR 2025. Man, we're having a lot of fun. There is a host of people here.
It is packed.
This place is packed, and it's been packed. You talk to all the Uber drivers, like, holy crap, what's going on over there at that place? And you can't even get there, can't get out. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to our podcast or watching our podcast, whatever you do. Philip?
Thanks for coming. Yeah, this has been fun. This is probably my favorite AHR. I mean, there's more energy and people. There's always a lot of people, but it is just, it's fun this year. So,
it's super.
Guys, if you're here, well, we're not going to air this live, but anyways, get in touch with us.
Get in touch with us.
We'd love to do these again. We'd love to do these Q&As again. So please send us your stuff. If you want to see a show about a certain topic, we'd love to hear that too, because we're always sitting around going, what should we do next? What should we do next? Well, what are the people enjoying? What are they not enjoying as much? We know you enjoy all of them, but not as much. So we'd love to hear that from you. If you have a topic that you want to see Terry and I tackle or bring a guest on to unpack, we'd love to hear that too. So anyways,
thanks again from
Thank
AHR
you.
2025.
This episode of the LG Pro Podcast was recorded in February 2025 by LG Electronics USA Inc., LG, in front of a live audience. Companies mentioned in the podcast: Facebook, Instagram, ESCO Institute, and LinkedIn. LG is not affiliated with these companies and does not endorse their products or services. LG disclaims all liability and is not responsible for any damages or issues arising from the use of these companies' products or services. LG and the LG logo are registered trademarks of LG Corp. Facebook and Instagram are registered trademarks of Meta Platforms Inc. LinkedIn is a registered trademark of LinkedIn Corporation.